Hi, everyone. Welcome. Inquiring Minds. Special event, special guest we have here.
Thank you.
Don Daniels with us today. And so we'll wait a second until everybody starts popping in. But Donna, I'm so happy to have you on finally. I think we've been trying to work this out for about a year.
Well, I flunked retirement and my work schedule is 2 weeks on, 2 weeks off, and it's been kind of crazy.
I like how you flunked. Hi, Sonja. Hi, Spirit Watcher. I like how you flunked retirement. I think that once you are, you were born kind of flying already. So I feel like you can't really retire from that, can you? Until they're like, no more for you.
Well, it's kind of like the sea. Once it gets in your blood, you're hooked for life.
Yeah.
But one friend of mine who's very psychic says I've been a pilot 5 or 6 times. And she saw me kind of rolling my eyes and calculate. And she says, oh, not all on this planet.
Oh, you're like, okay, wait. We didn't start flying here until, yeah.
Well, in this recorded history, but back in the Vedic texts and stuff, there's talk of the Hemanas, I think they call them.
Oh, okay. Well, and then, like you said,
Atlantis, Lemuria.
Right.
Yeah.
Wow. So we are both in Colorado. I feel like you're up north of me, right?
I'm just west of Denver in the foothills.
Okay. So
7,400 feet.
Yeah. So you're higher and more northern. And so when I complain that it's cold here, I'm assuming you're colder there.
Our little secret in Evergreen, don't tell anybody. We're about 2,000 feet above Denver. In the summer, we're 10 degrees cooler. In the winter, we're often 10 degrees warmer.
Wow.
Because they're down in the cold air inversion and the ice spot. We're up above in the sun.
That's right. Okay.
Don't tell anybody.
So you know where I live, literally about a stone's throw from NORAD.
Mm-hmm.
I'm right there, and so activity here. I'm assuming I've felt activity. At one point, I did experience some kind of like. I just knew there was something right here, but you couldn't see it. But I knew it. I'm like, there's something right here.
Next time, take a picture because often it's just out of our visual range, out of the spectrum we can see. But especially the digital cameras have a little wider spectrum. It'll often show up in a picture when you didn't see it with your eyes.
Okay.
I've got some pictures like that. I've got one of a huge orb. I mean, this thing's like 10 or 15 feet across.
Oh, you should have sent that to me. I could have gotten it up here for people to see.
Oh. Well,
I don't know. I mean, it's probably
do that for next time. We got way too much to talk about it.
We do. So enough about me and my little baby experiences. I have literally here as well. I've woken up to an entity touching my forehead, this side of my forehead, and electricity going through. And I wasn't afraid, and I knew that it was something like some kind of whether it was a vibrational thing, and I knew it was either they were like letting me be aware of. I don't know. I just knew it was okay, but I definitely felt it, and I woke up and I felt literally a finger on my forehead and the electricity going through, and I'm like, okay, well, it's getting a little uncomfortable, so I moved, and it left.
Yeah, a lot of the contact actually is taking place in either the lucid dream state or the hypnagogic borderline sleep state.
Right. So right when you're waking up and not quite there yet.
But maybe you should tell the audience what the program's about, because we
will. We wanted to chat till everybody got in. So I see that everybody's here now. Well, most everyone. We'll get more as the time goes on, but okay. So excited to have Don Daniels here, and you guys saw on the the advertisement or whatever that we are. He wrote Evolution Through Contact, Becoming a Cosmic Citizen. And I mean, we need to also know, oh yeah, I do have your, where you can order this. This is, you guys, he wrote it for us. He did. He wrote it for this family here. Y'all need to get this book. He may have written it back in the day. However, it was meant for the timing now for us. So
2012.
2012. So yeah, 10 years.
Yeah.
Yeah. So 10 years ago, but meant for now. So please, so we're going to be talking about it. And so Dawn, I'm going to kind of hand it over to you. Please tell us about yourself. I can tell you that he's a pilot and a very spiritual, awakened human that is going to share some of his experience with us. And yeah, I'm going to
pilot. Here's the full business card.
Oh, there you go. Pilot, mystic, philosopher, and poet.
Trying to get it. And
ambassador to the universe. Yay, I love it.
So anyway, I grew up in a very open-minded family. My dad was a small-town family doctor, and my grandfather was actually a scientist. He was the head of the chemistry department, University of Wisconsin in Madison, and physical chemist. And he got called in to head up the Chicago part of the Manhattan Project. And he built that reactor under the stadium, and where they did the first controlled chain reaction in recorded history. I think there have been some in ages past also, but and then the Los Alamos group did the uncontrolled chain reaction part of the bomb development. When that was all over, Grandpa said, with dropping the bomb on Japan, we may have saved our kids, but I'm not sure what we've done for our grandkids. And then he went into solar energy. And when I was a kid, like junior high age, we were doing solar energy experiments on the beach up in our cabin in Wisconsin. And I was junior scientist helping with the experiments, solar stills and solar cookers, and basically third world, easy to build solar energy devices to reduce pollution, get us off of fossil fuels and stuff. That was back when I was a kid. His book, what was it? The direct use of the sun's energy is what it was called. Farrington Daniels.
Wow.
And then my dad went into the Navy at 17 when the war was going on, got special permission, was in training to be a pharmacist mate, and he finished that, and he was all set to ship out for the invasion of Japan when they dropped the bombs and ended the war. So then he went on a project out in Anahuac Island where they were dropping the A-bombs, and with his medical background, he was studying the genetic aberrations, mostly on plants, of the radiation dose versus how much chromosome damage there was and stuff. They were trying to get that kind of calibrated. And when he finished that up, came back, went to medical school and became a small town family doctor. But he met my mom at the Oak Ridge Labs when it was still a top secret project. So I guess you could say I come from a nuclear family. Sorry.
It's all good.
Dad was pretty open-minded, and we were, doing experiments with model pyramids, and he brought home these life after life and life after death books, and Supernature. I forget who the guy was that wrote that. I'll think of it in a moment. Lyle Watson, was it? Anyway, we explored these kind of concepts when I was a kid, and in sixth grade, I was a real pain for my poor sixth grade teacher. Her science books were probably 20 years out of date, and she was 30 years out of date, and I was always correcting her on matters of science. And I bring in my appropriate copy of Science Newsletter the next day and show her, see.
She loved you. She loved
Oh,
you.
my mom didn't teach me the social graces of not embarrassing the teacher on a nearly daily basis.
I love it.
But anyway, that's kind of how I grew up. And in the 6th grade, I was bored stiff. They probably would label me ADD, ADHD nowadays and drug me into normalcy. But I would daydream about a UFO landing out in the schoolyard, and I'd go out and meet the people. And that was just
who introduced you? Did you do you think you just came in knowing, or did someone introduce you? I know that you talked about a little bit in your book about how you just every type of science fiction type stuff, you were really into that. But when was the first time you can think of that you were like UFO?
That was probably at 6th grade. And the school librarian was borrowing books from the middle school because I'd consumed everything in the grade school library. But, well, for instance, when I was 1 year old or thereabouts, I was standing on the couch and pointing and said car. That was my first word. And my second word was plane, associated with the object. And much to my mom's relief, Mama and Dada finally came. But no, I was always fascinated with things that flew. And I'm sure I've done it before. But
I just, in just consuming your book, I just really, I'm like, I feel like you were born with this awakened conscious, but then now you're explaining too that you had a family that already was in that direction as well. So that really helped you along your way to be.
And how long did it take you to read the book? One sitting?
Oh, no. I took my time because
okay.
I like to underline. I like to take notes and stuff like that. So
yeah, I've had more than a few people tell me they started reading it in the evening and they finished as the sun was coming up. I don't recommend that.
Yeah, once you get started, I can say once you get started, you don't want to put it down. But one thing I loved in the book too, and you guys need, are these exercises. After each chapter, he offers like an exercise to help you along with our own expansion and awakening. And I thought that was brilliant. Number one. Number two, it really is a helpful tool if you all want to go in that direction and have this expansion, and in all levels. It doesn't even have to be about ETs, but you can utilize those tools for yourself. I love that.
Yeah, well, one of them that really helped me, I became a Rosicrucian mystic back in 1990, so that's about 32 years now. And really got into this oneness that we're all one and all created equal and everything. And it really brought back, because I'd seen some information, some conferences or whatever on you are what you were when. In other words, what was going on during your most formative years, like your early teen years, is what really gets deeply imprinted into your psyche. And back when I was at that age, there were the race riots going on, and the way the media presented it was these bad people are rioting. And they did not show the other side of the story. And so you get imprinted with a little bit of racism, whether you realize it or not. And so as I became a mystic and really started working on myself, I started to realize that, hey, let's notice your first impression when you meet other people, and let's analyze it. And is it fair? And so when I would catch myself having a less than positive first impression about somebody, I'd say, wait a minute, reset. Let's go back. Is that fair? Let's give them the benefit of the doubt till they prove me wrong. And by mentally doing this reset enough times, you can start to change that deeply ingrained pattern in yourself.
Mental reset. Yes.
Yeah. It takes some work. You got to be diligent about it.
Right, and I use different language, but it's changing that narrative. I always say changing the narrative. You know, take assessment there and evaluate that and change narrative. But I like the reset. That's a little bit snappier. People
and
understand.
I grew up in Eastern Oregon, and we had a lot of Japanese Americans that settled in that area after they were released from the internment camps. A lot of my schoolmates were the children of those people that had been interred. And so, especially in the science and math classes, it was probably over half. And I had to really work to keep up with them because they were very diligent students. We also had a lot of Mexican migrant laborers, farm laborers, and we had 2 black kids in the school. And so, you know, I was in a relatively sheltered environment as far as that was concerned, and it took a while to really start to see everyone as equal. But with a lot of work, you get that past that level, then it's much easier to see extraterrestrials as one and the same.
Yes, and this is where I want to go with this too. But it does take work to break a systemic narrative that has been impressed on you, and so being conscious about what was the word you used to reset?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so reset. I love that. Okay.
Time out, reset, reevaluate. Is that fair? Let's give them a chance. Give them the benefit of the doubt till they prove you wrong.
Yeah.
I'd rather be hurt once in a while than carry the prejudice.
Yes. Beautiful. Okay, so looking further into this shift that you went through, which started for you in junior high, but the love of flying, that started earlier. When you were born, you were already flying.
Yeah, I was playing with paper airplanes and balsa gliders and rubber band planes, and later line control and radio control. And when I was 14, I was the co-pilot on our family vacations, and my dad got me lessons in the Cessna 206, which is a fairly complex single-engine airplane, so that I would be able to land it if anything happened. Mom was really worried. Now, Dad he made it till 94. He just passed away the end of January.
Oh my goodness!
But
that's right.
So there wasn't that much issue with him. But Mom was always worried if anything happened to Dad, you know, what happens to the family. So I got lessons, and I was flying the airplane at 14. 16's the youngest you can solo fly it by yourself. And so on my 16th birthday, I rode my bicycle to the airport because I didn't have my driver's license yet. Went around the pattern once or twice with the instructor. He kicked me out. I did my 3 landings all by myself, came in. The newspaper reporter was there. Thanks, Mom. And and then I rode my bicycle home. Now, our little driver's license office was only open on Tuesdays and Thursdays in that small town. So I said, that's enough for today. I'll go get my driver's license on Thursday. I had my priorities.
Oh, well, yeah. But that's just fabulous. And that really opened up a whole new arena for you as far as your story unfolds, just opening up the world to you and people. And then also, so tell us about how all this, I know that we were kind of going to go through some of the sequence of your book and tell us, we're anxious. We want to know about how this all played out and how you really got into the extraterrestrial and that whole cosmic connection. And then we want to know how to do it too.
Oh, okay. Well, the meaning of life, the universe, and everything?
Yes, just it all.
42.
Page 42. Awesome. So you have the pages down even.
No, that's That's from Hitchhiker's Guide to the
Oh,
Galaxy.
okay. Sorry. Yeah.
But anyway, yeah, I did a lot of commercial flying, a lot of flight instructing, a lot of charter. It was funny because I was flying people around on commercial charters.
Varying Red knew what you said. Varying Redbeard knew what you meant.
And
Sorry, I'm slow, you guys. Go ahead.
and I was less than 25, so I could fly people in an airplane commercially for hire to wherever they wanted to go. And when I got there, I couldn't rent a car.
Wow. Wow.
Yeah, because I wasn't 25. But eventually,
Right.
well, things
Don't.
kind of got
Let me
churned up
pause
later.
Let me pause you for a second. Up to the right of your computer, you can see where it says comments.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, click
There we
on
go.
that so you can
There we
see
go.
the comments.
I
Okay.
see. Okay. So the airline thing kind of fizzled for a while. So I went and played air traffic controller for 8 or 10 years, and then finally got on with one of the major airlines. And I'd been reluctant. I'd been interested in mystical stuff, and when I lived down in the Bay Area, working at one of the flight schools down there, I'd go by the Rosicrucian temple and Rosicrucian Park down in San Jose, and I was really drawn to it, but I wasn't. People said, that's not good for a pilot's career to get into any of that mystical stuff. So finally, I got on with the airline, and I was based in San Francisco, so I was commuting down from Spokane, and I thought, okay, now I've got the job. I went down and checked him out, and wound up joining. Actually, I wound up flying with a guy who was a member, and I really picked his brain.
And he was a captain that you flew with,
Yeah.
correct? And he was
Captain Jack.
Yeah.
Yeah. Subtle right sense of humor. He was hysterical, and I'd come home laughing so hard my cheeks would hurt. My wife would say, "Okay, what happened this week?" One time, and I'm still a brand new 727 flight engineer. We're flying like from Chicago to Seattle or something, and going past Yellowstone and Jackson Hole, and I reached for the PA to tell the passengers. This was before they had movies in the back. Off to the right is Yellowstone Lake, off to the left, Jackson Hole and the Grand Tetons. Jack turns to me and says, "Don, I dare you to explain to the passengers how the Grand Tetons got their name." And I said, "Jack, I'm still on probation, and that sounds like something you could pull off smoother than I can." I handed him the mic. and he paused for a moment, gave him the straight spiel, hung it up, and says, "It's a good thing those same Frenchmen didn't discover the Grand Canyons."
Oh my gosh.
Oh my God. The guy just cracked me up. But anyway.
He kept you rolling.
Oh man. Yeah, the poor co-pilots, I figured out real quick, you just shove it right back at him. We got along famously. The poor co-pilots are like, "What the heck is going on?"
Yeah.
We had so much fun. But anyway, he got me into the Rosicrucians, and I'd really wanted to do some UFO research, but MUFON at the time was pretty heavily infiltrated with the government spooks and whatever. That didn't quite fit. And I went to a lecture by CSETI, Dr. Stephen Greer, and all of a sudden, a lot of the stuff just fit the reason for all the secrecy. And it's not so much that they're afraid people will flip out and jump out of windows or any of that. It's that they don't run around the universe burning Exxon Jet A.
Okay. Yeah.
If we had their energy and propulsion systems, we wouldn't need fossil fuels. All of a sudden. So I went to one of his summer outings. Back then it was smaller groups and relatively inexpensive. He's gotten pretty proud of himself these days. But anyway, the very first one, and I've done, they sent out a packet, a lot of pre-study material. And the very first night, we see this thing come streaking in the southwest and just instantly stopped. Big blue white light, bigger and brighter than Venus. And I go, "That's no meteor." And as it came across, it didn't look like a meteor. It was more of a plasma trail than flaming chunks breaking off or anything. And Dr. Greer picked up his laser pointer and went flash, flash, and it went flash, flash. And I said, "Whoa." Somebody else picked up a 1,000,000 candle power spotlight and did the same thing, flash, flash, and it flash.
Ooh.
And as pilots, we'll sometimes, if we see another airplane, we'll flash our landing light at them. If they flash back, we know they see us. It's a subtle, non-verbal form of communication. Hi, I see you. I see you too. Okay, we know we're watching each other. Okay, that's cool. Well, this was a UFO that just responded and said, hi, we see you. And I'm going, okay. So I was about to suggest that we try a number pattern, like a prime number sequence, 1, 2, 3, 5, see if they do 7, we do 11, see if we could start to alternate. That would definitely prove higher intelligence. But before I could even say that, this blue-white, pale blue-white, like about the color of faded blue jean material, and not bright at all, but bright enough we could see it. The spotlight just came down and hit our group. And we don't know how far away the craft is. It's a bright light in the night sky. How do you judge distance? We figure anywhere from 2 to 20 miles away. So this thing hit our group of 18, and it was scientists, university professors, doctors, pilots, mostly professionals in the group. And boom, the spotlight is right on us. And then some of us could see the scan line go through, like on Star Trek when the bridge gets scanned.
Yeah.
That's red. This was blue. Close enough.
Yeah.
Okay. And then the light retracted back into the craft. It didn't shut off. It got shorter. I have no idea how they did that. And so I said, cool, we've just been scanned.
Wow.
And I thought about that time, I thought, well, right now they know more about me than I know about me, which
Right.
could be a little intimidating if you had ulterior motives. But since, my intentions were pretty pure, I thought, well, that's kind of cool. And that came back later, which we may hopefully we'll get to when I met Tashina. But I think they checked me out at that time and put me in their database and put me into service later on.
Well, let's hear it. Keep going. We are on the edge of our seats.
Okay. Later that week, I was seeing these subtle energy form humanoid shapes around the outside of the group. We were out in the Baca down near Crestone, the high desert, and it was like, the old black and white TVs. If you had a real weak signal, how you get a really snowy picture.
Yeah.
But you could just barely make out a humanoid form in there, like maybe the newsman is talking or something. Well, I was kind of seeing that, and I'm wondering, am I deluding myself or is that real? And like after the second or third night, a lot of people were going to see one of the local healers, Donna, down at the rock shop there in Moffat. And they said, oh, you should go get an appointment with her. And I've never done anything like that before, but, when in Crestone, do as the Crestonians do. And so I set up an appointment, and Donna and her daughter worked on me for about 2 hours. And they had these massive singing bowls, the big crystal singing bowls, and 2 different notes, and the harmonics between the 2 of them, when they got them going, vibrated every cell in my body all the way to the core. And I said, I don't really know what's going on out here in the field, but just remove any blockages and open me up to more accurately perceive what's going on. That night in the field, I was very distinctly seeing these energy form humanoid shapes. And, I'm watching them a little bit. And when Dr. Greer took a breath, which is unusual, I managed to get a word in. I said, Steve, do you see what I'm seeing? And he goes, oh, yeah, I've been watching them for a little while. I go, okay. So we all got up and we walked over to that side of the circle, and we stood in a line, and we're, kind of arms out, palms up, just as non-threatening a pose as possible. And there seemed to be one of these beings paired up with each one of us. I kind of felt sorry for the one that was paired up with me because, here I am brand new at all this and conflicted, and the BBs are bouncing around in my head, and I'm trying to figure out what's real and what's not. And so I figured just thought project who I was, what we were trying to accomplish, that we were citizen diplomats, ambassadors trying to initiate some peaceful contact. And just doing that telepathically, thought projecting rather than speaking out loud,
Okay.
and just a big jumble.
Mm-hmm.
And then I just became receptive to see what kind of message they would give me. And I expected like a voice in my head giving me a few words, a paragraph or sentence or something. Instead, what I got was very powerful, very distinct emotions, unconditional love, and intense gratitude.
Wow.
And I'm going, okay, the intense gratitude, once the monkey mind kicks in, you start to analyze, then it loses validity. I'm sure you've noticed that doing your readings and intuitive work. But it kind of came back that they were grateful there was anybody on this dysfunctional planet that was trying to initiate some peaceful
Yeah,
relations with them rather than trying to shoot them out of the sky or whatever.
exactly.
Yeah. Later in the week, I got what you remember that Star Trek episode where history is just scrolling by so fast and they have to jump through the portal at the right time?
Yes.
Like that, but even faster, just a ram dump. And I go, wow, I didn't get any of that on the way in, but I'm sure it'll come out at the appropriate time. And years later, I was flying with a brand new captain. I was one of the instructors at the airline at that time. And during the IOE, the initial operating experience on the real airplane after he finished his simulator training, we had one night during the whole trip where we had more than 12 hours where he was able to go out and get a drink and celebrate. So we're down in San Antonio and we go down on the Riverwalk. It was like 11 o'clock at night, trying to find something still open. And we hear some bad music coming from the back of this little cove. And I said, well, at least they're open. So we go in there. It was Mad Mike Monday, I think it was, at Tequila Mockingbird.
That's a cute name.
It is. And the locals were doing their poetry and their songs, and it was mostly a college crowd, lost love laments and stuff. But this one guy, probably in his 40s, got up and he read this poem called Star Child, and it just triggered something in me.
Ooh.
And I'm grabbing napkins and writing like crazy. And on the way back, I'm stopping and writing stuff. I got to the hotel room and I'm making notes and try and go to sleep, and another stanza had come in. Oh, wake up, write it down, because otherwise I'm either going to be awake worrying I'm going to forget it or I'm going to forget it. And the next morning, a few more came in, and basically at that point, my first poem, Friends in High Places, was pretty much written. All I had to do was polish up the meter and tempo a little bit, and it was done. It came flooding in.
That's amazing.
So I think that's another way they communicate is through inspiration. That they ram dumped all this into me, and this event triggered it, and boom, it just came flooding out.
And a lot, we talk about automatic writing. Well, boom, right? Yeah. And I love the ML. If you look at the screen, you can see all our yesterdays.
Oh, Star Trek.
The Star Trek episode.
Was that the one with Picard where he was playing the little flute? And he'd been imprinted with the memories of this civilization that was their sun was exploding or something.
Gosh, I don't
I
remember.
think that's the one. Yeah, that was one of my favorites.
Star Child triggered the dump of info, Pamela's. So, okay. So, with these experiences that you're describing, like your first experience when it was just like, it was no longer a concept or a theory, even though you have this knowing, but it was right there in front of you. How did you maneuver through that? Because I know that a lot of the family here, and there's some that are they believe, yes, but they also have a fear of contact, and I do believe it has to do with narrative that has been forced upon us through movies and stuff like that. And I boycott any type of movies that and any type of shows that show our extraterrestrial family friends as enemies because
Mhm.
it's the wrong narrative. And so
There's been a battle between the white hats and the MJ12 power and control cabal. So you had the good movies, E.T., Flight of the Navigator. Actually, one of my favorite all-time movies is The Day the Earth Stood Still, the original. The remake was terrible.
okay.
The original, 1951, 52, 53, something like that, Michael Ramey. That one was actually put out by the guys at the State Department as a psychological study to show the how different people would react and get people thinking about how they should react uh, if it was announced that we were not alone in the universe, that we had visitors. It was designed to prepare people psychologically, get them thinking about it. And so I highly recommend people watch that original, The Day the Earth Stood Still, from
The
that
day-
perspective.
if someone could post that in the chat, that'd be awesome. The Day the Earth Stood Still in the 1951 one, you said?
It was Michael Ramey. It was early 50s. I'm not sure exactly the year.
Um,
And then, of course, we had Independence Day and War of the Worlds and those that were designed to make you afraid.
yeah.
And if they can inject fear into the concept of contact, that shuts it down instantly. The moment you see a visitor and you're afraid, that just shuts it down. So,
and in my, this is not in my wheelhouse, as you can tell, but but you still come on every once in a while.
Strawberry loved it. Strawberry rhubarb.
Yeah. So, but that's the messages I've been feeling from our extraterrestrial energy coming in. That they're kind of waiting for us to kind of figure that out. So, for those of us who are open and know that, we don't have that fear, that they'll reach out to us more and more, but they're waiting for the whole thing because there's still so much fear.
Yeah, I wouldn't say 100% of them are benevolent, but you can do some things. You can build yourself a dome of protection, just mentally construct a dome around you.
Okay.
I cover it with, it looks like the titanium artwork that's kind of iridescent. So it's millions and millions of tiny corner reflectors. So anything that's beamed in is reflected back directly where it came from. So anything negative gets bounced right back, but it's open to any benevolent energies that might come through.
Okay,
and
so
you can also say, I wish to only work with those who are here in the best interest of humanity and the planet. You can set the intention, and then nothing else can enter your space.
Okay, so Tracy brought this up, that she's open. She says that, yes, I have some fear. I believe that they're just like us. Some are good and some not so much. So that's where the hesitancy comes in, because there's some of us that aren't so good. You see it happening right now. We have a war going on with someone who's like crazy. So what is it that stops them from hurting us? They have so much more power than us.
Well, surprisingly, in many ways, they're not omnipotent, omniscient, all-powerful, all-knowing. They may be more advanced technologically, their civilizations. They may be more fifth-dimensional love and oneness-based rather than the third-dimensional fear, ego, envy, greed type of basis. But they're still human. And
okay.
So don't treat them as gods to be worshipped. That could create if they came in and solved our problems for us, that would create a planetary-wide case of codependency. And that may have happened in the past. The ancient Egyptian gods, the Nordic gods, the all the different
Right. They mean,
that were treated as gods. If they were actually extraterrestrials that came in and were treated that way, one, it's going to be very hard for them to not get into their ego and and start to act like gods. And two, it's bad for us because we count on them to solve our problems. According to Tashina, they were able to come in 2012, 2013 mostly, and basically clean out the negative ETs that were not abiding by the prime directive.
Oh.
You haven't heard of any abductions recently, have you?
No.
Yeah. Okay.
Oh.
And they got most of the reptilians. There's still some that are pretty buried deep underground, but basically what they did was they got permission to come in and level the playing field for us. So now the rest of it is our problem. It's our responsibility to clean up our part of the mess. Once we do that, then we can move forward.
Now, so the Men in Black theory, I mean, it sounds a little bit like that in the cleanup here. Is that such a thing?
I got mixed feelings about what the Men in Black really were, whether they were.
Okay, so yeah, those Men in Black, but I mean like the Men in Black in the movie, how they come in and they kind of keep everything secret and they clean up the ones who are getting a little out of hand here on Earth.
Those were fun movies.
That's a fun movie. Those are fun movies, but it also, it wasn't so bad meeting some of those ETs that they brought in on that movie, right? So
another fun movie is Spaced Invaders.
Space Invaders. Okay, yeah.
Spaced with a D. Spaced Invaders.
Spaced Invaders. Okay.
That was a Buena Vista movie. It's probably 20 or 30 years old, but it was fun. It's actually good for kids. It's no bad language or anything, and it's got a good moral. Movies nowadays often don't have a moral. Those did.
Yeah, that's true. False Teeth Real Tarot says Men in Black are aliens.
Yeah, some. I'm not sure whether they're aliens or whether they're Earth covert project peoples, but
or a combination.
Yeah, and they don't like the term alien anyway. That's derogatory, and I'll get into that later when we start talking about Tashina. But the last thing that happened to me on my last CSETI outing, I was getting kind of frustrated because Dr. Greer wasn't walking his own talk at the time. He talked about one universe, one people, but then he was dissing the locals and talking about Mexicans as third-class people and ridiculing the newbies for asking stupid questions. I'm going, Steve, they're newbies. They paid to learn. And I had a little heart-to-heart with him about his ego and how it was hurting him. And he says, well, when you do what I do, you got to have a big ego. And
no, you don't.
I almost left midweek, but I hung on for the last couple of days. And the very last night, we'd been out till 1 or 2 in the morning every night doing our meditations, reaching out in remote view, trying to connect with others, invite them to come down, visit with us, etc. But that last night, the second meditation, I just didn't have the energy. So I just settled into that silence between the breaths. I use basically a breathing meditation, kind of a square breathing where you inhale and pause, exhale and pause. And in that pause between the breaths, there's a moment of deep, profound silence. If you work at it, you can expand that further and further until that deep, profound silence lasts through the entire breath cycle. You're connected with the cosmic consciousness, the Akashic records, the universal mind at that point. So I just settled in to that silence between the breaths, and I kind of flippantly said, come on down and play. And as an afterthought, I added, or beam me up. Instantly. I mean, it's like waking up from anesthesia, not like waking up from sleep where there's no sense of passage of time. I was on what appeared to be the deck of a craft, and I was surrounded by 10 or 12 of these little 3-foot tall crustacean guys. The faces reminded me of a crawdad, but they had skinny necks, skinny arms, skinny legs, skinny body. You could hear the clack, clack, clack of their pinch your hands as they were working around the room. And their vocalization was kind of a throat clicking, like the Bushmen of the Kalahari.
Yeah.
And I'm looking around, and by now I'd done an awful lot of work on myself to be prepared for high strangeness and and not freak out. You know, it's still kind of a shock, but you know, I didn't lash out at them or anything. My first thought was, I must be terribly intimidating to them because I'm twice as tall as they are. So I did like you do with kids. I sat down on the floor. I got down to their level, made myself vulnerable, showed that I was no threat to them. And a couple of them came over, and one of them was very gently touching me, like when a blind person feels your face to get an idea what you look like. And I could feel it. And then somebody back in the circle on the in the baka down there saw a big meteor and shouted, "Look!" You know, and it snapped me back into my body so hard it physically hurt.
Wow.
No, I want to go back. This whole thing lasted maybe 20 seconds.
Wow.
But you know, after that jolt, I couldn't reestablish the connection. But I think, you know, time is different in the higher dimensions. So I don't think it mattered how long I was there. I think we exchanged conscious concepts or whatever, and I think
Well,
that
you'll
no,
never be the same. That
oh no,
it was a life-changing moment.
yeah, just a moment, but it was very profound, and I think it may have been like a final exam to see how I would work as an ambassador, and I didn't freak out, I didn't lash out at them, so I think I maybe passed the final exam there.
You didn't try to run for the exit.
Now I call that my close encounter of the crustacean kind.
Crustacean kind. So how many of these, I know that you talk a little bit in your book about, you know, the remote viewing and like that. How many of these experiences have you had, do you think?
Oh gosh, I've run out of fingers and toes.
Yeah, ran out of fingers. So I want to move forward in your story. So
yeah,
I'll hand it back to you.
Let's go back for just a moment to
Okay.
You ask, how do you handle when something like that happens?
Yes.
Have you ever been in an earthquake?
Yes. I grew up in San Diego.
You know intellectually that earthquakes can happen, but when the ground that beneath your feet that you take for granted as being granite, when it shakes violently, it upsets your paradigm a little bit. Even though intellectually you know it can happen,
Yeah.
it leaves you off balance for a few days. That's the same thing that happened, you know, after that first sighting, the craft that came in, shined the lights back and forth. I was a little off balance for the next few days, but
and so then your mind, body, spirit connects in then after a few days of, okay, this is the new shift and I've stepped into it. So then the next time that happens, you still kind of have to adjust, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now we found that when we're out there in a group, it seems like the least psychologically prepared person in the group is the limiting factor. They'll come in until that first person starts to get uncomfortable, and that's where they stop or back up a little bit. So if you're working with, you know, if you happen to have an encounter, and it helps the more preparation you do, even if it's just mental role playing practice. If they reach a point where you're starting to be uncomfortable, maybe you've invited them, but now it's like, oh, it's too real. Just mentally say, I need a little space. Can you just give me a minute to kind of get comfortable? They've come all this way to meet you. They'll take the time, let you have the time to settle in. A breathing meditation is very, very helpful to help calm you, get you comfortable again. So if you just kind of focus on your breathing for a little bit, you can become more comfortable.
Now, here's a question for you, Don. When I go into someone else's home that I've never been, I know that everybody's home, you know, you walk in, everybody has their own way of doing things and their own, and trying to respect that, right? I always try to respect, and I try to fill into how this home operates, and I want to respect that and just be an ebb and flow instead of, you know, not a good whatever fit into the home. So in that, when you go and visit in their home, how do you maneuver with that?
Well,
how do you
treat them with dignity and respect, just like I do when I'm in foreign countries. I've been to 6 of the 7 continents on this planet as a international airline pilot, and I've greatly enjoyed soaking up all kinds of different cultures around the world. And same thing, they're just a different culture. They just come from a little further away. So, like maybe you've got a long lost cousin that's lived overseas, and you finally meet them, and so now you're starting fresh. You're cousins,
Yeah.
but you know nothing about their life experience. So now you start from whatever points you have in common, and you start to build a relationship. I also kind of think of the slight modification of the golden rule: do unto others as they would have you do unto them.
Perfect. Yep.
And so, treat them the way they would like to be treated is a little better than how you would like to be treated. But,
Yep.
just meet them from a basis of oneness, from we're all awake and aware and conscious in the same way, sparked by the same seed of consciousness from the same creator. That's a starting point you can work from. And then embrace the differences for what you can learn from them.
And then number 3, just say, sorry if I'm an idiot.
Right.
I'm trying.
Well, it's like, one of the encounters, it's like, I don't know the proper greeting in your culture. And they basically, the impression came back, you're doing fine.
Okay.
And by the way, most of my communications for the first 10 years or so were more on an emotional level, emotional impressions,
Okay.
rather than verbal or
Words.
visual or anything like that. It was more, I would get an emotional impression. And that was kind of weird to me, because I'm not the emotional type personality as much as, more scientific, visual, audiovisual, kinesthetic type. So that kind of surprised me. But
Well, that makes you the perfect fit too.
you want to be balanced in all the different.
In one of the first recorded where abduction, so to speak, with what were they? I forgot their names already. In 1960.
Oh, Betty and Barney Hill.
Betty and Barney, yeah.
Yeah.
Both of them very, very intellectual, but also they had a sensitive side too. I feel like it was a good. Even when I read about their story, I'm like,
and that's part of the psychological control and manipulation psyops thing. The only word that was used to describe these encounters was abduction.
oh,
And I've had so many people tell me they were abducted when really it was a consensual meeting. But they didn't have any other word for it.
Yeah.
And so by bending the it's like Animal Farm, where if you don't have the word to describe it, you can't think it. But a lot of them were they were looking for contact. They invited it.
right.
It was consensual. It was peaceful. But they still called it abduction, and that I've been trying to train people not to do that.
Thank you. Yes. And I, in my limited, and the family knows, I have zero, this is absolutely not in my wheelhouse of words, but in my connection and bringing messages through, I was told, I've learned that these are pre-life contracts almost it's in the knowledge that this is going to be happening or whatever. This is part of our contract. And also another thing that came in during message time that I found very interesting, the pre-contract. It'll come back to me, but
Andrea says, how can I set up a meeting? Do they use Zoom? No,
that it comes down in family, like it's like a family line thing.
Yeah, consciousness is the primary thing.
So that was, I found that very interesting. So I've been kind of learning about this just through giving messages to people. I'm like, oh, okay, well, okay, you know. So that's been kind of fun. But you have the hands-on experience, and that's what people want to hear. They don't want to hear from me. So, so you do the visual, what do you call it? The traveling remote viewing.
And actually, I took an out-of-body workshop.
Okay.
And
so the
I was talking to the instructor during one of the breaks, and I told him about this crustacean encounter thing, and he says, "You could feel them touching you?" I said, "Yeah." He says, "Well, that wasn't remote view. That was out of body. Your psychic body had to be there for you to be able to feel the touch."
Yeah. So when you were,
I had a spontaneous launch. I haven't been able to do it on command, but that was a spontaneous launch. Basically, I gave them permission, and they beamed me up, I guess.
Yeah. And so, do you think that those of us who do that type of traveling have, special astral travel type stuff, maybe have experienced this and just don't remember?
Oh yeah, I'm sure I've been going to night school a lot, and just and that's been told to me that that it will come out at the appropriate time. They're getting me all prepared for. Probably, I think part of my role is to be a ambassador between them and us when open contact starts to happen, to help introduce the people to our neighbors.
Okay. Because I feel a lot of us in this family here that we've all been astral traveling since we were born, just because of whatever abilities or trauma or whatever. You build that ability to be able to leave. Pamela's like, out of body workshop. Let's do that.
Now, more recently, I took a past life regression course, and the guy taught us how to do it. And I've done 4 or 5 people now so far. Every one of them popped into past lives and had vivid memories. So I must be doing something right. It's a lot of fun.
Well, you do have the great voice for that. I'm a transpersonal hypnotherapist, and I take a lot of people back. But yeah, it's so interesting, isn't it?
Yeah, and at the last year's Star Works USA workshop or conference down in Laughlin, there was a gal, Sarah Breskman Cosme, and the link is on there, the holistic hypnotist. Her book, she was doing hypnotic regression to help a friend with a medical issue, and this friend just popped into a past life in Lemuria, and then since she refused to give the Atlantans the red crystals, the healing crystals, they destroyed Lemuria and took her captive in Atlantis, and she spent the last half of her life in Atlantis. The book, it's another one of those page turners. It was just fascinating. And I looking that up today, I see she's got another one out about the Sphinx, and I just ordered it, so I gotta dig into that one and read it.
Holly wants to know when you think we may start seeing them more without, this type of, happening.
When we might start to have more open contact?
Yeah.
Okay. It seems to be ramping up. Events in the higher dimensions don't work on a linear time scale the way they do here. It's not a calendar. It's this event plus this event creates this event. It's more event driven than calendar driven. So it's more a matter of when we can raise our collective consciousness enough.
Let's do this.
Yes, absolutely.
Let's raise it up. I feel like you're a pioneer for us here and raising your consciousness. Again, like I think you came in with already part there, right?
Yeah, and I don't know if we have time. We could do a short meditation and take everybody on a little trip if you want.
Yeah, we can do that. Absolutely. I want to
or maybe on another show if we're running out of time.
I wanted to look at, there's some other things you had talked about here. Okay, the Oneness Meditation. And you guys, in his book, and I'm going to show you again, here it is. Someone put the link in the chat already on the Amazon link that you can purchase this.
Yeah, or you can go to my website and follow the links there, but it's available on Amazon.
Or the website. I want to hear about, I don't know if we're there yet, but I really want to hear about Sierra's story.
Oh, okay. Sierra's story. Geez, I met Sierra years ago, and where do I start there? She.
I know I didn't know if we were there yet, but it was so mind blowing.
She was having memories, or she felt like they were, like she had. Well, okay. Let me start down in Colorado Springs, right where you are. She was in the Army, now retired from the Army, but in the active reserves. She was actually one of the first women to drive the Patriot missile trucks, to be checked out to do that. Wow. And she spent some time in the Middle East playing in the sandbox, and she's had to work through some issues about that too. But she was down in Colorado Springs, and one night she heard a scream outside her apartment, and there was a bright light shining through the window, and she rolled over to check on her partner and happened to see the clock, and her partner had gone to the bathroom. And so, but she sees in the room a little 3-foot tall gray extraterrestrial, and she tried to move and she was frozen. She couldn't move, and it came over, and it's mentally trying to reassure her. She's very intuitive, trying to reassure her that it's okay, I'm just checking. And it was scanning her with this light beam, this box with a light beam coming out of it, kind of a fan-shaped blue light. And she said what really weirded her out was, it felt cool, but the part that really weirded her out was it felt familiar, like it had happened before.
Oh, interesting.
And she kind of went in and out of consciousness a few times, and finally, when it left, her partner comes out of the bathroom going, my butt's asleep. She'd been stuck on the toilet for like 2 hours.
Oh, whoa.
And she had some friends that were sleeping in the living room, and one of them heard something going on and got up to knock on the door and make sure she was okay. And the next thing she knew, she was waking up on the couch again. And so Sierra started doing a whole lot of research, and this was kind of pre-internet, and she was kind of using some of her channels in the military, and of course this attracted some attention. So one day the Men in Black showed up, get in the black sedan. They drove her up to the mountain up there, Cheyenne Mountain, and put her inside.
Over to NORAD. No one gets into NORAD unless you see a ET.
Well, they gave her the tour, and they showed her an extraterrestrial body under glass and said, was it like this? And she says, yeah, but it was only half as tall. And they showed her kind of a museum room, like an air museum that had a bunch of different aircraft, but it also had a little craft hovering in the middle of the room. She said it looked like about the size of a VW bug, and it was just hovering. She got the impression it wasn't ours. And then they put her in a room and let her cool her heels for a while, and then this guy comes in, just reeking of high rank, but no insignia, no name, no nothing on his jumpsuit. And he talked to her a little bit, and he says, now that you know, stop asking. Okay. And they took her back. Well, a little later, actually it was after that first night when the ET was in the room, she called some friends that were in the psychic community down there in Colorado Springs, and one gal comes over and looks at her and says, Sierra, you're pregnant. She goes, not likely. I'm a lesbian. I haven't been with a guy in a long time. And no, you're pregnant. So she went to the store, got the test. Sure enough, it came up positive. And so she got every other brand, and they all came up positive.
I would have.
And she wanted to keep the baby, so they set up, the psychic protection around her and everything. And it was several months in, and she's starting to show, and her friends are saying, "Sierra, you can't just have this baby without ever seeing a doctor." Yeah, but I'm afraid that they'll take it if they know I'm going to the doctor. So she said, "You set it up, and don't give me any warning. Just come and get me and take me at the appointed time." And so the night before she was supposed to have the doctor's appointment, which she didn't know about yet, something happened. She woke up in the morning, her stomach was flat, she felt different. She took the pregnancy test, and she was unpregnant.
Wow.
And so she figured she probably had a kid out there somewhere, a hybrid. And so years later, she's getting this impression about the kid, and she wanted to be able to communicate. And I gave her some ideas of how to go about trying to establish some communications conscious link. And well, one time I was working on the book, and she calls me up and says, "Don, I got to talk." I said, "Okay, when I finish this chapter." No, I need to talk now. Okay. So I closed up the computer, and I headed down and met her at the Mimi's down there in Denver West. And we talked and talked and talked. Finally, after that, I got the impression one night as I was just falling asleep that there was an entity in the room trying to connect with me. But it was so different from what I was used to that I really couldn't make a connection. I just got an impression that it was probably her daughter.
Oh.
So I said, "Sierra, I think your daughter, child, tried to connect with me last night." And she said, "Well, she thought it was a masculine energy she was getting."
Oh, interesting.
I said, "Well, we'll find out soon enough." Well, then her daughter followed the connections to a friend of mine who's much more psychic than I am, and actually was playing with her kids when Tashina came into the room. Who's your friend? And her friend just kind of disappeared into stardust. But well, actually, eventually they had a conversation and some information they wanted to relay to Sierra. So I set up a phone call between Sierra and Tashina, and they talked for a couple hours and had a great time. And then shortly after that, her daughter connected with Sierra one night and basically jumped in like a braided soul and was in her body, experiencing life through Sierra's eyes, our reality, and kind of like who's his name? He's a guy who wrote. I'll think of it. Maybe we'll talk about it in the next one. But he wrote these books about connecting with a future descendant of his way in the future, and seeing the world through his eyes, and eventually the other person could see the world through his eyes. But anyway, they were sharing. She said it was like two kids trying to drive a car, one running the accelerator, one running the wheel, and trying to walk even. But they got to spend a whole night together.
Wow.
Sharing. And she got the impression that when her daughter was a little older, she'd be able to come more physically to visit. So
that is so interesting, and probably answers a lot of questions that everybody has about that type of connection and creation.
Somebody says book to be delivered on Saturday. Woohoo!
Yeah, they bought a book. Yep, that Bond's got the book. Yay!
But I suppose we've been talking about Tashina a little bit. Let's kind of lay the groundwork there.
Okay.
I first met her at a mystical retreat weekend down in Colorado Springs, and I was staying with a friend down there, and I was sleeping on the couch out in the living room. Tashina had the back bedroom. The first night we get together, and we went out for Chinese food, and she's sitting in the corner, kind of just moving her food around the plate, not eating much. And Heidi, no, that was a different time. I'm sorry. Anyway, we were driving back and forth to the conference, and Tarot-Sheila was asking, or I was sharing some of my UFO experiences. She was kind of surprised somebody talked so openly about it. So when we got to the meeting during lunch, I said, "Hey, just for one of our members' interest, how many of you have had any kind of a UFO or ET encounter?" About half the hands went up. I said, "Thank you very much. Carry on." And she's like, "Whoa." So she started to share that back in her youth, her stepdad was in the Air Force, and she was talking about some event, which she's never really clarified, but talking about some event on the base radio station. When she came out, there was a Project Blue Book officer waiting to talk to her. And she thought, oh, it's just a nice guy wants to know what happened. Well, he wasn't quite so nice, and it kind of spiraled out of control. She wound up having to go into hiding for several years. She said she lived in Mount Shasta for several years.
What? Okay. So that answers some people's questions too.
Yeah. And then when she came out, she was living with the Indians in Southwest Oregon, Native Americans, and she really only confided in the shaman and the medicine men. And I guess they've got quite a tunnel network where they can travel underground through a lot of that area. But then her guides, bosses, I'm not sure exactly. She says she only takes orders from the angels and source, but she was told that it was time to move on to the next phase of her. I hate the word mission because it's got religious overtones, but her purpose here was to help the kids that are ADD, ADHD. They're really our future. They're really tuned in, connected, but the schools don't understand them, don't know how to teach them in the way that they learned. So they're bored. They fidget like I did when I was a kid. And so they generally drug them into normalcy and destroy their potential. And she wanted to create a system to teach them in the way that they learn so they can reach their full potential.
Wow.
In order to do that, she had to have some credentials. So she went into the big city, Phoenix, to get her master's in education. She's also an anthropologist and several other things. But when she got to the big city, she was just totally overwhelmed by what we would call mainstream society. And she was sent out to Colorado to find someone who could help her. And after our meeting at the retreat, I had suggested that a friend of mine was putting on a workshop for people who'd had encounters, and especially if they were having trouble coping with it. We would just get together, lay the groundwork, the ground rules, listen with an open mind, don't ridicule, etc. And then share some of our experiences to break the ice, and then let them share. And I said, I think we've still got an opening in the next one. And she kind of hemmed and hawed and reluctantly agreed, almost chickened out, but then she did come. So that's the time when she's eating Chinese food and just kind of pushing the food around. And Heidi said, I had to show her how to use the ATM. I'm going, whoa, fresh off the res. Well, the next day, on Saturday, she shared a little, but she was pretty vague and evasive about it, but we didn't push. And Sunday, well, we had one guy there that was a little adversarial too. Sunday, he didn't come back. A couple other people had other commitments. We had a little smaller, more cohesive group on Sunday. And so as we're kind of wrapping up, I said, Tarot-Sheila, I know there's a whole lot more to your story than what you've shared so far. I didn't know what it was, but I said, now that you know the group a little better, you care to share a little more? She took a very deep breath and she said, Earth is a very difficult assignment. And my jaw just slowly hit the floor. Like,
yeah.
Okay, maybe I've got this backwards. Let's start over.
Yeah.
And that's how it started with her. And then she's the one who helped Sierra with the connection with her daughter.
Wow.
But,
and now there's a couple.
And that's where I think it came full back around from when they scanned me and realized that I was a person who could help. And they sent her out to find me. And she had some problems She said the light levels are much lower back on her home planet, so it was uncomfortably bright. But if she was wearing sunglasses inside, that kind of attracted attention. Well, I found these sports contact lenses, like Nike makes them for tennis players, so they don't have sunglasses bouncing around on their face. There's no correction. She doesn't need that. Her vision's much better than ours, but just the tinted contact lens. So she got those. She was able to be comfortable without attracting attention. She would set off the magnetometer at the airport just for body energy. She'd also blow up toasters and light bulbs and stuff.
Wow.
She had to learn to kind of contain it when she's around technology and electronics. But basically, you know how you can build a bubble of protection around yourself?
Mm-hmm.
I said, okay, when you go through the magnetometer, first you have to take off your shoes so you can now bleed off excess energy through the floor. At least at that time, you had to take off your shoes.
Mm-hmm.
And build this bubble of protection around you that keeps your energy in. Go through the magnetometer. When you get out the other side, then you can kind of open up again. And this was when she had come out to visit, and I was going out at the same time she was. I was going to work, but I went through the regular security instead of through the employee security with her just to see how it worked. And she gets through out the other side, and she goes, check.
Awesome.
She was also deadly afraid of dogs. She'd been attacked by a pack of dogs walking home from school one day and went running up to this random apartment, knocked on the door. Guy opens the door, sees the dogs coming, pulls her in, shuts the door. You know, she was just terrified of dogs. We had a little miniature greyhound, and she was just terrified. So we took him to the kennel for the weekend. And we talked about how the dogs feed off the fear and they sense that emotion. She'd set off dog alarms half a block down the street ahead of us. And so we talked about it. And then I said, well, we were going to take you for a walk around Evergreen Lake, but a lot of people walk their dogs there. Maybe we should go somewhere else. She said, nope, I want to try. Okay. So we went and did a walk around the lake about 2/3 of the way around. I said, Tashina, you realize you haven't set off a single dog alarm yet? She goes, check. So we were able to help in a number of ways. And it's funny, you know, mutual assistance thing, whatever, you know, we were able to help each other a lot. She expanded my consciousness.
You stated that she said that Earth is a hard assignment, and that's how a tough assignment. What's the assignment, do you feel? Just that linking together?
Well, she's an anthropologist, among other things, so she's kind of doing the Jane Goodall thing, observing, but also periodically giving a little nudge here and there to kind of nudge someone in the right direction.
So she's one of those that many talk about that are amongst us that just kind of do those little nudges of bringing in that.
There's kind of the prime directive, but it's not quite as strict as on Star Trek. But they also don't allow negative interference like we were getting, and that's why they were allowed to come in and kind of clean house. She said back in 2020 there were about 1 million off-planet people on the planet living among us. 2023 or 2013, I mean, was when they really ramped it up and were cleaning house. She said that time there were about 2 million, and now it's in the tens of thousands, just primarily observers at this point.
Wow, tens and thousands.
But billion into 6 or well, call it 7 billion at the time. That's one for every 3,500 people. So that means basically almost every small town had somebody living amongst them, and they generally go into public contact type jobs: bank teller, bus driver, flight attendant, customer service agent, type of thing, where they can interact with a lot of people.
Now, did she talk about some of the hardships that she was experiencing as a human experience down here?
Oh, yeah. For one, it's a little hard on her physiologically. Our pollution and stuff is, I mean, when she moved to Phoenix, it's like, blah, the water's terrible. You know, the chlorine and stuff. She was used to, you know, living up on the reservation and pretty much pure mountain water.
Okay.
But she had some encounters with some of the covert NASA types that were not pleasant. Actually, her family had to come in. She was captive, and her family came in, and she says, for me to be prepare myself, because the Arcturian men are between 12 and 18 feet tall. Okay, I'll work on that. But they were
Wow.
holding her captive, and her family basically portaled into the facility and said, okay, you will release Toshina, and you will never bother her again. And they're going, okay. And she's
Okay.
had a problem since with that. But yeah, she's, how do you go to a doctor when you're physiologically a little different? Her brain is a little different. Her heart and lungs are more of an integrated organ. Her tailbone, actually, she doesn't have, her spine doesn't go all the way down. She's got a gap in the middle there, and the doctors can't figure out how she can even stand up.
Wow.
Some differences. There was a famous case. This was back in the 50s, I think. There was a UFO crash in Iceland, or I think it was Greenland, actually. And shortly after that, a group of people immigrated to Wisconsin, and they kind of formed their little community. And the dentists were perplexed because all of them had a different number of teeth than is normal.
Wow.
Yeah, so they crashed. They had to blend in. Yeah, it's kind of.
Does she is she in did she talk about being in contact with others like her?
Yeah, there's others, and she says they don't necessarily have an email list, but that they can recognize each other pretty quick. She was talking to one person in a mystical group, and oh, you too? Yeah.
Wow.
And she's told me of several others that I've met that I didn't realize at the time. Yeah.
Pamela wants to know what are the tall men called? The tall ones.
Well, they're just the Arcturians.
Arcturians.
They're one of the oldest and most advanced civilizations in at least our part of the galaxy. The star itself, Arcturus, has gone through its red giant phase, and it basically cooked its solar system, so it's not habitable. But they spread out amongst that part of the galaxy, and they, I think she said her star, Urdu or something like that. I can't remember exactly the name she called it. Was about 103 light years from here. But they have portal technology, and their ships can go faster than light, but they're a little slower than instantaneous. Which brings up another interesting thing.
Okay.
I wonder, how do they communicate, across the galaxy? Because, if a star's 1,000 years away, and you send back a message, hey, just arrived on Earth, no intelligent life down here, and then the home base comes back and says, okay, fine, keep us informed. That whole interchange at the speed of light is the whole time since the birth of Christ. But consciousness is instantaneous. If you remote view or visualize yourself somewhere else, you can be there instantly, and it doesn't matter how far away. It's more like quantum entanglement. And so they operate in the consciousness spectrum, which is a much higher frequency than the radio spectrum. And just like the speed of sound is one spectrum and the speed of light is another spectrum, the speed of consciousness is another spectrum. It's instantaneous. So you can really communicate instantaneously in that spectrum.
Did she talk about kind of the goal, the overall goal for planet Earth?
Well, we're trying to raise the consciousness from, like I said, the third dimensional fear, envy, greed, ego type of zero-sum thinking to a more fifth dimensional oneness, unity, win-win type of thinking. And that's I gave you the link there for or the names of some books there by Mark Kimmel. Trillion, Decimal, and One were his original trilogy. And when I read Trillion, I said, Mark, that's my life the past 10 years, except for running around the country with a live physical ET in tow and dodging the INS. And then that later kind of became less true because I was. But Icebreakers is one that really is excellent, demonstrating third dimensional thinking versus the fifth dimensional thinking. I really recommend that if somebody wants to kind of learn how to move into fifth dimensional thinking.
Awesome. And when you talk about mystical group, can you describe to us what that what that means? Mystical group?
Well, mysticism, it's kind of metaphysics is more of the mechanics of I don't know what you would call it, ESP, telepathy, psychometry, what do you call it, where you can levitate things? I forget at the moment, but mysticism is kind of the study of the mysteries of life. We do kind of comparative religion, all the different philosophies and religions, and take what we like from all of them and combine it into whatever works best for us. The Rosicrucians are a ancient mystical order.
Okay.
That
telekinesis.
Well, for me, there's many, telekinesis. There's many paths up the mountain. Different people will find different paths. They all lead to the top. Well, unless you fall off the path. But you can check out Rosicrucian.org.
Rosicrucian.org. Okay.
.com is a different group, and they're more into selling books and stuff.
So make sure .org, you guys. I didn't put that in the link, so I don't have that one, but.
And see if it fits for you. It's been quite a study for me.
Very interesting. Okay, so I wanted to look at some of this, your shift. You have the shift here, and I don't know if y'all can see this. It might be a little blurry for y'all, but the shift that you wrote, this is in your book. This is in his book, and it's in regards to the shift. Can you talk to us a little bit about this?
Well, back when I wrote the book, the theory was that the shift was going to be kind of instantaneous. When we reached a certain point, it'd be like creating a morphogenic field, I think it was Lyle Watson said in his book, Supernature, where the monkeys, when the 100th monkey learned to wash their food in the ocean, all of a sudden monkeys on other islands started doing the same thing. It just became part of the field. So they thought it was going to be like flipping a light switch. I've since kind of come to the conclusion it's more of a process than a flipping a switch. But this talks about basically shifting from the old paradigm to the new as we move into more spiritual, more fifth dimensional type thinking. If you go to my website, you can follow the link from Tasheena to the radio program I did with her. She did come out eventually and became more public. And she was up at Standing Rock with the water protectors.
Oh, wow.
And I was sending supplies, clothing, tents, money, food to help support them. And I wanted to go up and spend a week or so up there with them. And Tasheena refused to let me come. She says it's too dangerous. And I'm going, well, you're there. But for some reason, she felt it was important to not expose me to that. Now, some of the people that were involved, they were spraying the camps with rat poison and stuff, trying to destroy their food and chase them off. It was actually chemical warfare, and it's a war crime. But since it was done by the contracting security agencies for the benefit of the corporations, they somehow got away with it. But some of the people that were up there, Dennis Banks was one of the Native American leaders of that group, and he died from probably the poisons. And Margot Kidder, the Superman's girlfriend in the movies,
yeah,
was up there, and I understand
wow.
she died from that too.
Oh man.
Yeah, it was criminal. But anyway, I did a radio show with her, Living Life in a Fifth Dimensional Way, Standing Rock, that you can listen to on, the link from my website is probably the easiest way to find it. Or if you want to pop up the one on Blog Talk Radio, they can go directly to it there. And then my program is Becoming a Cosmic Citizen. And so we had 3 or 4 different programs on the Galactic U radio network. Oops. That's Galactic U. There's supposed to be a capital U after Galactic. Somehow.
Oh, sorry. I spelled it wrong, guys. But Lisa, can you fix that before you put it? She's going to upload the link onto the chat. Can you fix that, Lisa? Are you able to go in and fix that link? It's how do you spell it?
Galactic U, like Galactic University.
Oh, Galactic U.
So just a capital U right after the
capital U right after Galactic. So.
And I've got a whole bunch of fascinating programs. I did a radio program for a couple of years and read a lot of good books in the process. And I tried very hard to read the entire book before the interview. There's only one time I didn't make it.
Thank you, Lisa.
This is one of Mark Kimmel's books, Trillion.
Okay, let me go ahead and stop this share here so we can see it. Trillion. Mark Kimmel. Did I have that? I think I have that link as well.
That one's on there. And I think you might have this one too. This one, the guy's from Australia, and this is brilliant. There's 2 of them in the series.
I'm glad you brought that in because I wanted to ask you about that whole concept. This is our Earth too. That is right. It's like, let's bring that in a little bit. There you go. Isn't that a shift just right there?
Yeah.
It's our Earth too.
You have to search carefully, but you can find it on Amazon. And then if people are into heavy reading, a friend of mine, Dr. Claude Swanson, is a physicist who's been getting into
the synchronized universe.
That's the first one. And this is the second one. And he's kind of a leader in trying to find a scientific basis for some of this spiritual stuff.
Wow.
That's book 2, and you can see it's and book 3.
We'll have to get
also a thick one.
We'll have to get Irish Granny to go through these ones for us. I love it. Wow. Science of the Soul Afterlife.
That's some heavy reading if you want to really get into the nuts and bolts and scientific basis.
Let's see. I also have this link. I'm not sure what that one is. A link, windstargalactichealing.com.
That's Tashina's website. I was just looking at it. Doesn't look like it's been updated in a while. And I have not heard from her in a while, and I'm a little concerned about what might be going on. But
okay. But if you want to check her website out, here's her website.
And I'd recommend going to I think it's the More tab and then photos and stuff. On there, she's got a picture that was taken of her where she didn't see it, but off her shoulder, her family is peering through the portal saying goodbye when she had just come back from visiting home.
Whoa.
And you can see some faces on the edge of the picture bleeding through.
Wow. Okay, and we have, here's your website. Here's Dawn's website. And Lisa will throw these all up for you guys to just click on too, as well. And I feel like Star Work USA. We didn't do that one yet, did we?
Star Works USA. There you go. There's going to be a fascinating workshop this summer down in the Crestone area with Ricardo Gonzalez, and then in November she's got the conference down in Laughlin, and those are always good and quite reasonably priced.
So Lisa will put those all in the chat for it. Thank you, Lisa.
Okay. We're at an hour and a half. Do you want to go for 2?
Are you guys up for it? For going some more time, because we do have some more to share here that we didn't get to yet.
We got days more to share, but
but we'll be back on. I do want to revisit this. I feel like the community is really hoping for this, and since you don't have your own YouTube channel yet,
yeah. Let me talk just briefly about the spiritual aspects of contact. Well, let's see.
Everybody's in. They're all in.
They're all in.
Yeah.
When Tarot-Sheila was first coming public, and when you're looking for her radio programs, her legal name is Itasha, Itasha, and her spiritual name is Tarot-Sheila. So some of the early programs I had Itasha. You can search for either one and find the programs, and the best of repeats were better because I went through and did some audio editing, took out the ums and uhs and the background noise, and so they're a little easier to listen to. But when she was first coming out, one of the first conferences she spoke at, I did my presentation, kind of laid the groundwork, but didn't spill the beans. And then during the break, we were out talking, and she referred to herself as human. And I said, but Tarot-Sheila, I thought you weren't born on this planet. She says, I wasn't, but I'm humanoid, aren't I? 2 arms, 2 legs, 2 eyes, head on top, all that stuff. Mm-hmm. Okay. I had worked very hard to break down the barriers of race and culture and ethnicity and stuff, and was pretty good about seeing all people as one, but I still had this subconscious us and extraterrestrial. There was a subconscious wall that I didn't even realize. And when she says, well, I'm human too, it's like, duh. And she says she does not like to be referred to as alien. That's derogatory.
Okay.
She doesn't even like extraterrestrial because she's been living here most of her life, working here. It's like if you were a Peace Corps worker in Africa or something and you considered that home where you were working. Or I've got a friend who was born in China, and then as a teenager, her family moved over here. So she considers herself an American. Tarot-Sheila considers herself human. So, people who live elsewhere and come to visit, maybe extraterrestrial might be appropriate. But for her, this is home.
Okay.
This is where she works.
I was just going to ask, so is it derogatory that we call them extraterrestrials? But it's not.
No, alien is derogatory. Extraterrestrial's okay if it's appropriate.
Oh, okay. So alien.
I asked her what she preferred to be called, and she said, well, star cousin or star sister.
Star sister, okay.
Because she says we are biologically related. They have, the scientists in the covert projects wondered why the extraterrestrials look so much like us. They're asking the wrong question. Why do we look so much like them? This is a mixing pot planet. We're descendants of colonists from all over the galaxy. And the object is to intermingle, learn to get along, and promote the best traits of all. So,
I like what you said, that subconscious us and them. We have to move that to the side. We need to kind of see through that, break through that. Yeah.
She actually had her DNA tested, and she was part Comanche, part I think it was Mescalera, part Tibetan, kind of a mix. But then there was like 18 or 20% DNA totally unknown on this planet. So,
there you go. And
so we have met the ET, and they are us.
And they are us. And I
quote Pogo, or paraphrase Pogo.
Now Don, we can't even figure that out between the different cultures just on our Earth, and just the different colors. We can't even figure that out between each other, and no wonder they're still looking at us like, come on, really? You're still us and them even on Earth, just between these differences. No,
and we can't seem to get the corporations under control to stop polluting our planet to death. I just heard a report the other day that the Arctic is like 70 degrees warmer than normal, and the Antarctic is like 40 degrees warmer. I mean, this is massive warmer than it's supposed to be, and the implications. The Arctic and Antarctic have been warming faster than the mid latitudes. We've got to do something to get us off the fossil fuels. We're killing the planet, and well, the planet will survive, but we won't. It's not going to be near as nice a place to live for our grandkids.
She'll survive because she'll adjust, but it's us that will.
Yeah.
So
one thing I've done is
I didn't mean to interrupt you. I know you're.
One thing I've done is I found a very unique vehicle. I've got one on order. It's called Aptera, and I think I had the link there for my referral. If people use it, they can get they can explore the vehicle, and if they want to get one, they can get a discount on their deposit. It's solar electric. It's a 3-wheel auto cycle with solar cells all over the top, extremely aerodynamic.
I didn't get the link. What's the link?
Let's see.
Did you send me the link?
It's the preorder.A3147.
Oh, the one with all the.
Yeah.
I missed that one. Oh, I think, but Lisa has it. Lisa, can you throw that in? It's like the HTTPS like 1Z
LZ95. That's basically just my referral link. If they use that, they get a discount, and I get a discount. So
awesome.
They're kind of like Tesla in the early days.
She's way ahead of me. She's got it.
They're not doing a lot of advertising. They're just kind of referrals. At this point, they're in the beta test phase. They're working on the gamma test phase, and I may be one of the testers. I've been communicating with them for winter mountain driving, see if the wheel wells ice up, and just test it out on Georgetown Lake, and really push it to see if it spins out. But it's got the motors in the wheels. There's no gearbox and drive shafts and everything.
Wow.
Each wheel has a motor. There's a 2-wheel version and a 3-wheel drive version. I got the 3-wheel because I live up here in the mountains.
Yeah.
And with the motor controllers, you got full-time traction control. So.
Are they going to start building little cars, or?
Well, they're hoping to have their first production units out and delivered by the end of this year. Mine is, since I got in a little later, mine's probably going to be the end of 2023 before I get it. But it's so efficient that just from the solar panels, you get about 40 miles of driving range a day just from the sun on a sunny day. So if I drive to the airport and I'm gone for 2 weeks, if I had a Tesla, I'd have to shut down things like the connectivity. So, so I couldn't turn on the heaters before I get back and stuff, just to have enough battery to get home at the end of 2 weeks, because it drains the battery just sitting there in the parking lot. This thing, I can arrive at the airport almost totally empty. I opted for the 600-mile battery package. You can get up to 1,000, but I thought that was overkill. But 40 miles a day, gone for 2 weeks, I can arrive totally empty, and when I get back, it's totally full.
Wow. Yeah.
So you almost never have to plug it in except for road trips.
Now,
so not only am I not burning any gas, I'm hardly even affecting the grid.
Exactly. And Be Kind says it looks like a spaceship. Is it?
It does. As a matter of fact, the early Generation 1, which was a hybrid like 10 or 12 years ago, had a cameo in one of the Star Trek movies. They were at the Starfleet headquarters in San Francisco, and one of these drives by in the background.
Wow.
First gen, they brought in some Detroit engineers, and they wanted to scale up to massive manufacturing right away, and they basically ran them out of money, and it took them 10 years to get the rights back, but now they're doing it again, and it's total electric, solar electric, and It's just, it's a niche vehicle. It's a two-seater, but kids are out of the house,
There you go.
This thing has virtually zero impact. Matter of fact, I may have to figure out what to do with the extra electricity because I may generate more than I use. So it's just one little way I can have an impact on the climate. But let's do a couple of the poems.
Okay.
Let's start with evolution, because that's kind of pertinent to what's going on right now. I wrote this back in 2004, and the names and places and government actors have changed, but the message is still the same. So what's an average person to do when your government no longer represents you? You can deny it, or you can hide, or you can fight, but you have to decide. I'm a citizen of the United States, a party to all the great debates, but it no longer makes me proud. I feel compelled to speak my mind out loud. My government does things in my name that make me drop my head in shame. We didn't free Iraq for its masses, but instead for the people that make auto gases. We humans are all much more the same. The major difference is in our name. We all want the same outcome: peace, food, and hope for everyone. I've considered myself a citizen of the world without national flag unfurled. I feel more akin to the Afghan herder than to our leaders when they commit murder. But then I met some people from afar and discovered it matters not your home star. So as I now conclude this short verse, I consider myself a citizen of the universe.
Citizen of the universe. Absolutely. Wow.
So that's a form of spiritual evolution. As a matter of fact, the Grand Master of our Rosicrucian order read my book, and she says that's definitely spiritual alchemy, the book. So
beautiful.
Let's see. Did you want to get into my crystal a little bit?
I do. Yeah, tell us about that.
It's crystal, and I'm not sure. I've been told it's Andara, and I've been told it's citrine, and I've been told it's something else. One side of it is smooth and kind of
hold it up again for us. Yeah, there you go. Can you guys see that? There you
go. It looks like it was cut to fit in a housing or a bracket of some kind. Well, a friend of mine was doing some energy healing work, learning to do a form of energy healing, and she needed a healing test dummy victim to practice on. And I said, okay. So she's working on me, and after the third or fourth session, she says, Don, I was told I'm supposed to give you a crystal. Which of these, in this bowl, do you like? And my hand went immediately to this one. It's not the most beautiful or anything, and it's it's got the machine side on one side, but it just drew me. She says, well, that one was meant for you. She said, I was at a metaphysical fair and walking past this place and didn't even look at the guy, and this guy comes running out from one of the booths and says, ma'am, this is for you.
Wow.
Gave it to her. She gave it to me. Now, doing psychometry, or vibraturgy, it's called both, where you just kind of hold it, meditate, and just be receptive to whatever impressions. I got the impression that it was like part of the crystal memory, like a hard drive, but in crystalline form, from a craft that I used to be associated with. Now it's fractal. Wow. And I think it was in a crash. There was some trauma associated with it, but I did not want to wipe the crystal, to cleanse it. I wanted to leave all the history with it. And several other people got similar impressions that it was part of the navigation and power system of a craft. And then I was at one of the Starworks conferences several years ago down in Laughlin, and this gal brought a friend of hers from Canada that's an oracle. And oh, cool. And so I handed her the crystal. I said, what do you get on this? And she she handed it back, says, I need a little time. Okay, so the next day she says, okay, let me try again. And she tried it, and she said what she got, and there's no way to prove this, but she said what she got was that I was the captain of a small craft, like 18 or 20 crew members, in the Andromeda Galaxy, probably Lyran at the time. And we got a distress call. It wasn't any of our people. We weren't legally obligated to respond, but we did because that's what we do. And so we went in, and it turned out to be a kind of a flotilla of colony ships, huge colony ships that had thousands of people each. And what they were doing was they were taking the children of a number of different star civilizations that were being just overrun and decimated by probably the reptilians, is what I'm guessing. What they were doing was trying to scatter them out to different star systems, even different galaxies, in the hopes that they wouldn't all be found and that their civilizations could continue. And it was adult ETs from a different group that was collecting all these kids and taking them around to try and save their civilizations.
Oh, wow.
And they'd had some kind of a breakdown. So we went in, my engineering guy managed to get things fixed. And then we got an alert that there was the marauders coming in, basically, that they'd found them. And so I said, okay, medical engineering, you stay with the colony ships here and do whatever you can to help them. I just need a skeleton crew to deflect and delay them enough that you guys have time to escape. And I think it was just like 4 or 5 of us went back to my ship and held them off and deflected them long enough that the colony ships were able to escape. Of course, we knew it was a suicide mission. There's no way one little ship is going to hold off a whole army of reptilians, but we did manage to hold them off long enough that these groups got away. And my understanding is one of those went into the Pleiadian system. And there's actually several different races, I think 7 different races in the Pleiades. They're not all the blonde Nordic types. There's others that look more Native American and stuff, but that they were able to establish civilizations in that star area. And apparently she said that I was very highly regarded around the universe for the sacrifice we made to help preserve these civilizations.
Wow.
And it seems like something I do.
Yeah. No, I mean, your character is your character, whatever, life you're living. Your essence is your essence.
I've been told I've only had 6 or 7 lives on this planet, and that this one is by far the longest. I just turned 70, but I've got a funny bone growth on my neck that, I had a very visceral reaction to the Passion of Joan of Arc, the movie. Like I was part of those events.
Oh, okay, yeah.
And I have a habit of speaking truth to power, and I've probably lost my head a few times, and my feet sometimes burn. I've been told that that's because I was burned at the stake. So that sometimes happens when you speak truth to power, but hey, that's what we do.
Yeah. All you have to do is kind of lift up the necklace. You don't have to pull it through. You don't have to pull it up here. Just lift. There you go. You don't need to lean forward. Lean back a little bit, because there you go. That people can get perfect. So there it is, you guys.
Yeah, I used to have it on a cord, a parachute cord, and this Native American shaman down in Sedona told me, "Oh, it doesn't like that cord. That it's my talisman or my connection with the others, with our cousins." And I said, "Oh, well, how would a gold chain be?" And I said, "Gold chain, antenna, duh."
There you go.
Okay, yeah. So it's got its good antenna now.
Now I kind of want to revisit really quickly the sweeping that came in and took some of the more some of the energies that are not positive for us.
Okay.
Now, do you know when this kind of sweeping happened?
Mostly 2013, according to
2013.
Tasheena.
Okay.
She said the Pleiadians are the primary influence on this planet, probably the most descendants of their race. But they were having trouble with the Greys and the ETs, the reptilians. The Greys, according to several reports, are actually a parallel human society, and they're actually so parallel that they're similar family bloodlines and stuff. And basically, they destroyed their environment, pollution and stuff, to where they had to mutate to survive. But in the
Okay.
process, they couldn't procreate, and so they were coming to the parallel bloodlines on this planet to get the genetic material to be able to create the hybrids and perpetuate their species. But they didn't honor their part of the agreement. They kind of overran their prime directive, and so they've been removed. Uh, unless you invite them in, they can't come. They have to have an invitation. And so the abduction era, Tasheena says the abduction era is over. The Greys have been removed. They've got most of the reptilians. They pretty much leveled the playing field for us of those who were negatively influencing our planet's evolution. And so now it's up to us to clean up our part of the mess and bring humanity up to the level we should be.
And do you think that they were targeting our children at the time?
Well, the abductions seem to go in family lines, and in a lot of cases it was military families. That was kind of the original agreement, but they would follow through multiple generations of the same family, getting genetic material to create their hybrids.
Because I was just curious about, people talk about the reptilians, and I feel like they've even caught some on video or something at some point. But
to some extent, they believe this is their planet. They were apparently here before we were.
Oh, okay. All right. Got it. Interesting. And I like also how you brought that in, because I was always confused about the Pleiadians. Always confused. I'm just learning about this now. The Pleiadians, the Nordic, you call them
the tall blonde Nordic type.
Yeah, I thought that was a little presumptuous to have. You know what I mean? Like, really, like, wouldn't there be more to that? So I was glad to hear that actually there is. We just only have record of that. That they're
intermingled. But Tasheena told me I'm very Pleiadian. And I've seen other people that I looked at them. I said, well, that person's very Arcturian or whatever. But
okay. But you can have a Pleiadian person of color be like totally Pleiadian, right?
Oh yeah,
that's what I'm trying to say.
And there's also the difference between the physical genetic lineage and the soul lineage.
Okay.
Your soul could come in from another star system, in the past life. They can decide, okay, I'm going to do a cycle on Earth. We're a schoolhouse planet, and the challenges here force very rapid soul evolution, whereas in the higher dimensions where everything's peace and love and oneness and easy, okay, it's very nice, but there's not a lot of push to really evolve your soul. So people will come here to really push themselves to evolve.
Yeah. All right. And did the reptilians, while they were possibly wreaking havoc here, did they are they able to have influence on your mind and thoughts and behaviors?
I don't really know that much in depth about that. I've heard that they've had a lot of influence with the governments trying to steer things their way towards the paradigm, but that may be where some of the corruption and stuff comes from.
But that's where
made a deal with the devil basically, and
sold
to for the benefits they get from the alliance, they sell us out.
Got it. Okay, that makes so much sense now. Okay, let me see. Now, I feel like you wanted to, and this one's a horrible picture. Sorry, you guys.
Okay, I'll read it off my book. We'll close out with this for today, and we'll do this again.
Yes.
So let me moisten the throat again.
We're in Colorado, guys. It's very, very dry here.
Very dry.
When you get off the plane, you age 20 years. I'm telling you.
Okay, Friends in High Places. This is the one that wrote itself after that night at Tequila Mockingbird.
Tequila Mockingbird, you guys.
Started during the, when the guy was reading the poem.
Yeah.
Friends in High Places. A bold new world awaits us, a spinning on this earth, an end to wanton poverty, a time of happiness and mirth. Abundant, free, non-polluting energy, an end to hunger and disease. The possibilities are endless. Floating cars, if you please. We have met with friends in high places. All this is possible, you see. It has already been given to us and should be cause for much glee. But there are those among us who do not want these things to pass. They would much rather stick it to us in the gas. Our friends and neighbors we betray. Their technology was given, stolen, taken. Also, these greedy people, huge profits could be a-making. The relationship was adversely shaken. Fossil fuels we keep on burning. Our environment it is a crying. Big money these people are making, while Mother Earth, she is a-dying. Minions of darkness have caused us this plight. The only weapon we have is to expose them to the light. Legions of covert workers will then march out from their cave. Humanity will have to grow up and learn how to behave. There is a new golden age a-coming, of that we can be sure. We are working very hard, so you can stand the cure. The angels are on our side, that I truly suspect. Future generations untold our actions will effect. The world will get a lot bigger when we all realize we are not alone in this universe and see it with new eyes. If we fix our problems and do this as we should, we then will be invited to join the cosmic neighborhood. We have friends in high places. They want us to succeed. It is most important for us humans to persevere in this momentous deed. You can certainly help us in our epic quest. Join and work with us if you can stand the tests. A new universe awaits us, a chance to visit many places, an opportunity to meet new people with many different faces. New cultures, peoples, places, a much bigger view of creation, a future to look forward to with hope and great elation. By Henry Gibson. You might understand that when the millennials won't get it. You remember laughing?
The what?
You remember laughing?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
Yep.
The poet laureate on there would always sign off by Henry Gibson.
Yes, that's right. Oh,
Yeah.
my gosh. Now, so I love that we ended with that, but it's also kind of a beginning. So when we get to do this again together, I wanted to dive more into the fossil fuels and what you've learned over time and through all this. I wanted to dive a little more into that, and and the other thing in this last poem, I got this. It kind of drew me to kind of visualizing we're kind of being prepared to join the cosmic
neighborhood.
Yeah, and we're just being prepared to join in the whole highway up there. You know what I mean?
I got some kids outside. Let me see if we can see
Okay.
them. Okay, you see under the tree there? Oops, there we go.
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
Beautiful.
one deer ruminating, chewing her cud. Actually, two of them out there.
Beautiful.
Either side of the little tree, and another one just walked past. This is Colorado.
Can you see the deer, you guys? Yeah.
Those are our kids.
Sometimes I'll have literally 20 in my yard.
Oh, I went out to get the mail yesterday, and there were 2 elk in the front yard, like 15, 20 feet either side of me. And I just talked to them and moved slowly so I don't threaten them. Walked out, got the mail, brought it in, hopped in my car, and went to run some errands. And they were just standing there chewing their cud and looking at me from 20 feet away.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Now it's getting to be the season. The moms are very pregnant right now.
Yeah.
And when they drop their calves, they get very protective. So do not get between a cow and her calf, or in the fall, do not get between a bull and his harem.
That is correct. That is so true. Anyways, Dawn, it was such a pleasure to have you on today. I know the family here is so happy. You gave us lots to think about, and also expansion. And I saw that a lot of people got your book, so there's going to be a lot more questions I feel coming in. So the next time people have,
they'll have specific questions, and
yes.
We can do a meditation and maybe even a remote viewing exercise next time.
Excellent. And
let them see that they have the abilities, and I didn't get a chance to talk about the creative visualization and the friend of mine that manifested a new paint job for his pickup truck. But
that's right.
We can get into that next time. So we can practice a little of that, and we can do a remote viewing exercise. And I bet you some people will be surprised if they get it right.
So you guys all ready for that? Next time, we will do some exercises.
Boy, I triggered a lot of laugh-in comments there.
You sure did. I'm watching. I'm a little distracted by it. Flying Without a Broom wants to know if your book is on Audible.
No, it's not. I've been told maybe I should do that. I'm working on second edition, but don't hold your breath, because I'm working 2 weeks on, and then I come home and I kind of collapse for a couple of days, and I need to finish the second edition and get it into Kindle format, and then maybe I'll try reading a couple of paragraphs or a couple of chapters and see how it sounds, whether I can do it or whether I need to get a professional reader to do it and put it on Audible, but it's not at the moment.
All right. Well, we will.
But you can go to my website, listen to a lot of the radio programs, and I also recommend the one with Sergeant Clifford Stone. He was an interfacer for the military, interfacing with the extraterrestrials. Very interesting stories, and then I really need to get it posted online. I did a video interview with Tasheena that's quite interesting, but I haven't posted it. I should put it on my website.
Ooh, yes.
The world's worst webmaster. But,
it's a learning curve.
Yeah, you can get a lot from the interviews I did on the radio program.
Fantastic. Okay, so we'll see you family all next time. And again, Dawn, thank you so much. And
it's been fun. It's been a couple of years with COVID where we haven't really been doing a lot of presentations. So, but I do some local field outings for those in the Denver, the Front Range area. During the coming up in the next couple of months when the weather gets better, we go out in the field, meditate under the stars, practice remote viewing, inviting our friends to visit. The last one I did, I was up on the Squaw Pass up near the top, and it was during the forest fires. It was pretty smoky, so you could only see the brighter stars. But down to the south, where the Scorpio, in that area, I was seeing a big cluster of bright stars, and I'm going, now that's odd. I don't remember that many bright stars that close together down in that area. And the guy I was with said, "Are you sure those are stars?" I looked again. They started winking out all of them. Okay, so they were just letting me know. we have some interesting phenomena that happens. So it's fun to go out in a small group and meditate under the stars and see what happens. So if anybody's interested in that, my email, I really need to get an email manager, list manager, because trying to do it manually is a pain. But spacepilot@comcast.net. If you're in the local area, let me know if you want to join us on some of the field outings.
So that's spacepilot
@comcast.net.
at comcast.net.
I can't believe nobody else got that name before I did.
Oh, I love it though. It's so
Yeah.
perfect for you. All right, y'all. We'll see y'all next.
That's creative visualization too, creative manifesting.
Right? I love
Working
it.
towards that.
I love it.